85% of the adult population in Chulucanas were illiterate. A long-range, slow program to help people learn how to read and write because they wanted to read the Bible, because they wanted to share their faith as catechists. What a privilege we had. Who would not want to work with somebody who's on fire with their faith and want to learn more?
I'm John Lydon, originally from Toronto, Canada. I went to Villanova University as a lay student, and so graduating from Villanova, I then entered the Augustinians. I went to theology in Washington, D.C., where we had our theology at that time. And right after finishing theology, went to our missions in Peru, where I served for 40 years. Since then, I came back 2 years ago. I was at Villanova University, presently at the Formation House in Chicago on a temporary basis, and will be coming back to Villanova next year.
I'm Art Purcaro. Was born in the Bronx, and I'm the last four-year person of the minor seminary, Augustinian Academy, Staten Island. So I finished there in 1967, novitiate at New Hamburg, which is no longer there anymore either. Then came to St. Mary's Hall. I was here, well, I was in the novitiate, but I imagine we'll get a chance to talk about it, is when I volunteered to go to Peru. So I was here at Villanova, junior year. I asked permission from the Provincial Council to go to Peru to learn Spanish. I thought that would probably be a good idea if I wanted to work there. And they gave me permission to go. I was there, and once I got there, I realized this is what I was called to do. So I asked permission to stay to study theology, which I began in Lima, then came back, finished theology in Washington, was ordained, and have worked in Peru from 1975 to 2014, except for 2 periods on the General Council in Rome. I was exiled to Rome from 1995 to 2007, and went back to Peru after that. And I'm now working here at Villanova. This is my 11th year working in mission and ministry, and teach theology, which I really enjoy.
Well, when I entered the Augustinians, my first interest was to work in higher education. And so when I got to Washington, I actually began a master's in political science. At the same time, I was doing the theology. But we did pastoral ministry there, and one of my pastoral ministries was helping people get their high school equivalency exam. And it was there that I realized the great breach between the privileged education I had and what the poor and the marginalized had. And so that clicked in me of a call maybe to working more with the poor and the marginalized. And so I was invited to go to Peru for a year when I finished theology. And getting there, it was a very difficult year because it was a year of massive flooding in northern Peru with the El Nino effect. And so you saw the great poverty, all the destruction, the sicknesses and the death of so many people. And so seeing the need there, I asked to stay. So I ended up 40 years in Peru, and which has always been a great blessing in my life. It wasn't something that I thought of doing when I entered the Augustinians, but God led me there through that pastoral experience in Washington.
My experience was considerably different. When I think why I became an Augustinian, Lord only knows. The Augustinians were in the parish. I wanted to become a priest. I was 12, 13 years old. What do you know what you want to do at that point in time? But I signed up for the minor seminary. Before then, I was thinking about that question, why Peru? Martin de Porres was made a saint in 1962. I was in 7th grade. And that must have influenced me in some way. I remember my parents gave me a book on his life, and so that's some influence. And then I was at the novitiate, 1967, and the novice master was a member of the Provincial Council, Bill Krupa. And he and Norb Whitley were sent by the province to Latin America to see how we could support the Pope's call for religious working in Latin America. So the Chicago province had already been established in Chulucanas. They decided to stay in Chulucanas, and they were looking for volunteers. So as a novice, I volunteered to go to Peru.
Well, my first experience in Peru in 1983 was at San Jose Obrero. Father Art was the pastor there, so he was the one that welcomed me into Peru and taught me all the things I eventually learned about the pastoral plan. The pastoral plan in the Diocese of Chulucanas was based on building the role of the laity, building the structure of dialogue and participation with the laity, outreach to the marginalized, the poor in the villages. So all that was in place when I arrived there. It was a different experience of church, which we did not have in the United States, that kind of idea of church. So it was very different and very attractive when you saw we were small in numbers and a huge population and huge area geographically. San Jose Obrero, St. Joseph the Worker Parish, which was where we were both there. We had about 28 villages outside of the area of the town that we also were responsible for. So it took you out into the rural areas, and you saw the great faith of the people, the collaboration of the people, what they call in Spanish, cariño, the concern, the kindness, the good spirit of the people, even in spite of all the economic challenges that they were facing. So that was my first experience, and I was there for 5 years. I was supposed to go right after, I was there for my deacon year, actually. I was ordained a deacon in San Jose. Then I was going to go with Father Art and Father Rich Mullen to our new mountain mission, and I got there, but then a day later I got a call from the superior that I had to come back to San Jose. So it was my first year in Peru with Father Art, and that's where I learned a lot about the pastoral ministry.
It was a remarkable time, the time of the floods, the rains. I had gotten there in 71 when the parish was just starting, absolutely at its very beginning. And Jacob Peachy was there, who we've had the opportunity to talk about, and then Sean Walsh. Later on, Sean left, and John McNiff came. So we were the three of us there for a good number of years. But every year somebody would come, as Rich Mullen did, and then yourself, Rich Ahrens, and others came for a period of time, up to a year. Some really enjoyed it and wanted to stay, and fortunately many did. But the challenge of growth, I had no experience of working here in the United States outside of when I was in D.C., did retreat work. I learned how to be a priest. I learned how to build church in Chulucanas. And with, as yourself, many other people who were really interested in serving the needs of the people of God. This is post-Vatican II. It was a brand new way of being church, faithful to the gospel principles. So it was really, really exciting. When you came, I was just about finishing up. So after the end of 83 and 84, Rich and I went up to the mountains. Entirely different experience. Entirely different and absolutely remarkably different. That's the same country, the same diocese. Talking about the Diocese of Chulucanas has 1,600 centers of population, the largest of which was Chulucanas, where we were, which had just been a village. And now, I was there 2 weeks ago, it's a small city. It was a big town at best 10 years ago, and now it's a small city. But besides that the center of the diocese, there are 1,600 villages of different sizes spread out through the Andes or the desert. So San Jose, we learned how to be missionaries, learned how to serve the needs of the people who were there by doing. And the tremendous example of others, hopefully we get a chance to talk about John McNiff, but he was the pastoral zeal that he had, wanted to go out to the villages, which had never been done before he came. go to the village and visit the people and serve them. Then get involved in formation of religious men and women, because the young Peruvians had interest in becoming priest sisters as well as lay people. 85% of the adult population in Chulucanas were illiterate. And so what do you do there? You want to get the laity involved. A long-range, slow program to help people learn how to read and write because they wanted to read the Bible, because they wanted to share their faith as catechists. What a privilege we had to be able to work with those people. Who would not want to work with somebody who's on fire with their faith and want to learn more? So we were really fortunate. And even from the mountains, from Pacaypampa, then Chalaco, the opportunities to share our pastoral program and to share our way of being church with other people, going to Trujillo to teach one day a week. They didn't have internet back then to do it by Zoom. It meant traveling from the mountains down to the coast, travel by bus 7 hours to Trujillo, spend the night, teach the following day, get back on the bus, go back north, go back up to the mountains, go visit the villages. A real, a challenging experience. Thank God I was young. I could not do it now.
Well, I think one of the important things about mission work is it's a two-way enrichment, both for the people that go, to the missions and what you learn there. It's important that we rediscover ways that God gets manifested in different ways in different places. And so your eyes get opened up to a different way of thinking, a different way of understanding how the grace of God works in the world. When you're within only your own country, your own culture, you tend to think that that's how the world is, and it's not. So just opening your eyes to see how the multiformed experience of God's grace have enriched all people, and to go with be in that attitude that you're learning as much as you're teaching. You're sharing your faith and you're learning from other people's faith, and that just is a very broadening experience. Because there's a tendency of thinking for the missionaries that go to a place that they're bringing God to these people, but that's not the case. You discover, God's presence there in a different way than what the experience you came from, and that just opens up your eyes, and hopefully builds bridges of solidarity and the idea we have much more material things here and can share in that. But the faith of the poor, the dedication, their belief in the God that's at their side, that can help us enormously too, to break the focus on material, the idea that our worth is what we have. The poor teach you that our worth is who we are. We are children of God, and that change of focus is a constant challenge to our consumer-oriented society. And so the poor evangelize us. I think that's one of the important things you learn in the mission. The poor evangelize us as much as we evangelize others.
That's great. I actually, being a classmate of Father Joe Mastardi, brought a prop, as he would for any of his homilies. This saddlebag, and being from the Bronx, a saddlebag had no significance to me. Working in Chulucana City with you, San Jose Obrero, I was there 12 years before I went to the mountains to work. I worked with people from there, but working in the mountains, entirely different world. Entirely different world. The people, the way they speak. In Chulucanas, the desert, people are wide open, the doors are open, more extrovert by nature. In the mountains, so people more, it's colder. Not freezing, but colder. People live distant from one another on their own farms, not real villages. they began to build up, or not, pretty much on their own. They were self-sufficient, eking out an existence from the land, maybe trading with a neighbor. They would live and die within 30 kilometers of where they were born. And this is the life of those people, and yet basic trust in a God and a communication to a God they knew very little about, because they had very little contact with. I mean, who visited them? So to discover a people and to have the privilege of working with those people, encouraged by somebody like John McNiff to go out to the people. So we programmed with Rich Mullen to visit all the villages in the parish. And you're talking about you were either walking or going by mule or by horseback each day. You'd leave our house 3 weeks out of every month. You'd get on the horse and somebody would take you to that village, and you'd spend the time there that evening. The following day you'd sleep where the family gave you to sleep, wherever, and you'd eat whatever the family gave you to eat. The following day you get up and you'd look for some water to wash and get ready for the day, pray, and then you'd be a public figure with meeting with the laity, prepare for Mass, do baptisms, have lunch, which was always chicken and noodles every day, and get back on the horse and go to the next village. And if you didn't have in your saddlebag whatever you needed, you didn't have it. There were no Walgreens, there were no Wawas, there were no CVS. It was in here or you didn't have it. So just think of how important it is to decide what is necessary, how simple, how austere the life of those people. And for us to be able to serve them, to learn from them, that's not what you have. It's who you are. It's what you want to and can share. It's not what you want to hoard. So if you didn't have in here the books that you needed for Mass, if you didn't have in here a change of clothes, at least one, if you didn't have matches and a candle, you weren't going to be able to read or do anything once it got dark. You had to carry with you the basic, the elemental, the essential. So one thing I learned from that, how important it is, not what we have. In our society here, definitely, we are not who we are, but what we have. The titles we have hanging on our wall, and our house, and our summer home, and the type of car. It's really a challenge to come back to the United States after having the privilege of working with people who now, unfortunately, many ways have assumed some of our values. I think we have been blessed to be able to appreciate and hopefully assume some of the Christian values that they live more naturally, but they have assumed some of ours. There are fewer children and more concerned about having than about being. But I think this says to me, you have to be able to think beforehand, what is necessary, what is really important, and as simple, as straightforward, as austerely as possible, be able to share what God has gifted each one of us with. I don't have enough. I can't do it on my own. If anything, you and I have learned, and without doubt from Dick Apigi, from John McNiff, and without doubt Bob Prevost, now Leo XIV, you can't do it all. Teamwork. We are a community, and together we're better. We can't do it without God, and God has chosen to not do it without us. And I don't have your gifts. I wish I did, but I'm glad to be a member of a community with you, friends with you, because to be able to share your wonderful gifts, the things that God has given you, and you share so well with so many other people. I think this is our Augustinian charism, what we have. This represents that to me. We're called to share what God gifts us with, not to hoard it, and not to multiply it. We multiply it by giving it, as God gave life to us, and God gave new life through Jesus by sharing that life with us. So I feel blessed by having lived in Peru, having shared faith, the faith of the Peruvian people, and learn what I learned. I hope I can live it out.